Yes, you guys, and how are all of you doing today? I'm Nini FC, this is Blue Lions TV, and welcome to another 4 Talking Points video after that disappointing 4-0 defeat against Man United. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about whether Lampard made the right decision to let David Luiz go. I'll be talking about Emerson, Kurt Zouma, and to end things, Azpilicueta. However, before I get into anything, today's video is brought to you by the OneFootball app, and as I'm constantly stressing, download the OneFootball app. It is so vital and useful. Do yourselves a favor, download the OneFootball app. It's going to be in the link in the description below. And one more thing, you guys, smash that like button, help me get more than 1,500 likes for today's video. Now, starting with the first talking point, and I want to start on a positive note. I want to speak about the recent performances of Emerson. Now, Emerson has been someone that has struggled during his time at the club so far. However, since the end of last season and this pre-season as well, he's really been stepping up a lot more right now. And I'm starting to feel as if, are we going to see the Emerson form from the 16-17 season? Now, before I get into that, speaking briefly about his game against Man United, and I thought Emerson was the most accomplished defender throughout that game. And throughout the game as well, we saw that Emerson wasn't afraid to get forwards. We saw that Emerson had that goal threat and he was very positive in the attack. He got in many good shooting areas and his shots were accurate and hard, and he was very unlucky in the manner in which he hit the underside of the crossbar, because how often do you ever see players hitting it like that and then the ball bouncing away from the goal? So he was really unlucky to not score his first goal for this club. Now, when United got the 4th goal, I thought Emerson was very unlucky. He did very well to even get back in that position. He covered a lot of ground, and that's one thing that I'm really noticing a lot more. Emerson's stamina is on point. The guy has a great engine. He can run for days, and he's really the style of fullback that I thought he could be for us. And now I think we're starting to see some of those signs. Now, when Emerson first signed, he did have his own issues. He wasn't as serious. He was having a bit too much fun. But credit to the player. He's buckled down. He's got serious. And he's put in some serious work. And now I think that Emerson's starting to see the rewards of all his progress and all this recent hard work. And it's coming at the right time. Now, back during the 16-17 season, Emerson had an outstanding season. And from a statistical output, he was putting in season high stats for players in his position. I'm talking about 2 dribbles a game, 1.8 key passes per game as well, pass completion and everything. And from a statistical output, Emerson came second to Alexandro that season for the top performing players in Europe. And because of that amazing season for Roma, he was on the alert with every big club in Europe. So it made sense why we turned to Emerson, because yeah, it's a gamble, but right now, it's looking like that gamble may pay off. Now, yeah, when it comes to stats, we know that stat output varies depending on tons of different variables, like what systems they're playing in, support cast around them, etc, etc. But I think there is reason to be optimistic and excited about Emerson right now. When you realise how Lampard likes to use the fullbacks in his system, it's quite similar to how Emerson was used for Roma. And all I'm saying is, to end this point, I think that as the season goes on, Emerson and Hudson-Odoi down that left-hand side is going to be pretty dynamic. That's what I'm saying, you guys. It's going to be very exciting. And I'm really hoping that Emerson's going to keep continuing to improve, because his signs of development right now are looking very good. And I'm all for it. Now, moving on to the second talking point. The second controversial talking point. And I wanted to pose a question in regards to whether Lampard made the right decision in the way he handled the David Luiz situation. Now, as I've been telling you guys from the start, I always thought that Lampard was going to slowly phase David Luiz out the team. That wasn't the case, and after their big falling out, it was only natural that both parties needed to go. Now, of course, it's very disappointing. Even though I didn't agree with the decision, I could understand why it was made, and that was one thing I was stressing in the video I released. But one thing that bothered me was why Lampard told David Luiz a week before the season started that he was going to be 4th in the pecking order. That didn't make too much sense for me, and I'm sure that surprised David Luiz as well. And I say this because if you knew that he had no plans of using David Luiz, because when you are last in the pecking order, it implies that you won't be playing, then why use him in pre-season? If you knew that Luiz wasn't going to play, you should have used pre-season as an opportunity for the back four that you want to use to grow and understand each other's game. Because what we're seeing now, and we saw signs against Borussia Mönchengladbach, we're struggling to play out. We're struggling, and when it comes to playing out, there's a lot more involved than just being a good passer. You need to have that understanding for your teammates. You need to have trust from your teammates as well. And that's one thing I didn't see yesterday. I didn't see guys like Jorginho or Cover looking confident when it came to receiving passes from Zuma and Christensen. However, you guys, I'm going to touch on that point in more detail in the next talking point. Looking at that team and looking at guys like Christensen and Zuma together, I think with time, they will get better. But do we have that time right now? You know, the season starts, it begins. We're in the thick of it right now, and you know, we've got a game against Liverpool, and when you realise that there's only like 3 days between the United game and the Liverpool game, where do you find the time to work on improvements for the Liverpool game? I mean, you don't. Luiz was so instrumental for the team. I'm constantly stressing this. We're not in the 90s. Football teams, modern day football teams, start their attacks from deep, and there's no one better at helping you play out from the back than David Luiz. There's no one. No one can play the same balls at that same level like David Luiz can. And when you realise that he was a great leader at the back, constantly talking, constantly communicating. In the United game, I saw none of that from the back four. Luiz was the one too that was very brave. And you know, I want to speak about bravery because you know, a lot of times that's something we overlook when we analyse football. You know, when you're a player that's constantly wanting to receive the ball under pressure, you're a massive help for your teammates. If your teammates are getting closed down and they know that, you know what, if I pass the ball back to Luiz, we're good, that helps the team even more. And one more important thing about what Luiz brought to the team was how he makes the team move. Because he's great on the ball, it means that players can make runs, they can move, because David Luiz is going to find them. And we're going to miss his trademark passes between the lines. They were so effective at taking out opposition teams' midfields. To this day, I won't understand why people don't like David Luiz. I don't get it. I really don't. From a footballing aspect, he provides way more positives than any of his negatives. And I think now, Luiz is a player that really could have helped the team out. And if he's playing yesterday, I really don't think we're losing 4-0. But I want to pose this question to you guys. Do you think Lampard made the right decision? Do you think that Luiz would have helped? Or do you think I'm talking nonsense and I need to stop being a fanboy for David Luiz? Be honest, you guys. You can comment whatever you want in the comment section below. Now, moving on to the third talking point, and I do want to talk about Kurt Zouma. Now, Kurt Zouma was a player that a lot of us fans have had very high expectations for. I still think he's going to come good. If you guys know Kurt Zouma, you know that he's always been a slow burner. Now, my thing is, and as I mentioned earlier when I was discussing David Luiz, why didn't Frank Lampard give more game time to guys like Kurt Zouma and Christensen? I mean, throughout pre-season, we've seen Kurt Zouma playing on the right, playing on the left. How do you build that consistency? How do you build that relationship with people at the back? It's very hard. And, you know, when I watched the United game again, one thing that I noticed in particular was the lack of movement and rotations. And it felt like players were a bit nervous to pass back to Zouma. Maybe that's what made him more nervous, and maybe that's what caused him to make so many silly mistakes. I look at Kurt Zouma right now, and I mainly think it's down to a confidence issue. I don't think it's due to his ability. The guy is a great defender, and I think that as the season does progress, we're definitely going to benefit from that as the season progresses. Passing out from the back is going to be a big thing that we miss because, you know, United's pressing plan, I've seen it before. It wasn't anything unusual, but it was quite surprising how much we struggled to play out from that press at times, and it really made it feel like there was a lack of control in that second half. And of course, there's going to be a lack of control if we're not able to build any attacks out from the back. Now, this is where we take players like David Luiz for granted because, yeah, United made it very hard. They used a man-marking pressing style where, you know, they had two of their forwards on Jorginho and Cover, and it was clear that they wanted certain players to have more of the ball. If you're Kurt Zouma, and yeah, the guy is a good passer, but he's not a David Luiz passer. And I want to stress this, there isn't anyone in Europe that can play the same style of balls as David Luiz. When the midfield aren't able to lose their men to collect the ball, you're hoping that guys like Barkley and Pedro, whenever they drop deep, are going to help relieve that pressure. But time and time again, when they're man-marked, these guys keep folding and kept losing the ball. So it kept adding to this football where we had absolute no control throughout most parts of the second half in particular. And we were trying to continue to play the system, even though the personnel playing weren't doing it properly. It is going to be interesting to see what Lampard does. I'm guessing that Rudiger will return immediately back to the team because Rudiger is a bit David Luiz-esque. He's not as good on the ball, but he's still a great passer. So he's going to play a vital part at the back. And, you know, for Frank Lampard, he needs to decide, is he going to partner Rudiger with Zuma or Rudiger with Christensen? Now, I do say this because during pre-season when Luiz was partnering either Christensen or Zuma, both of those players look good. And I think that when you're young, you need to have some experience beside you because you need that voice of reason and you need that leader to help you in situations. You know, an experienced player like David Luiz is going to say, hey, Zuma or Christensen, I want you to be 5 yards behind me in case this happens, that happens, etc, etc. And, you know, yesterday we saw absolutely zero communication out from the back. Now, what's my conclusion when it comes to Kurt Zuma? I just think it's simply give the guy some patience, give him some time until we find out what the consistent back four is going to be. We simply need to be patient. Now, to end things with a final talking point, I want to talk about Frank Lampard and Azpilicueta. Now, after the game, Frank Lampard said something quite cryptic when he spoke about how Reece James is going to be important for the team once he returns. Now, it gets you thinking a few things. Number one, is Lampard making the right decision being so hasty to remove experienced players out from the team? And two, is Frank Lampard basically saying that Azpilicueta won't be playing? Now, when it comes to point one, you guys know that I'm here for this ruthless approach. Now, yes, I do know that there are going to be some negatives. I do understand that. You know, when you have an experienced player, you are going to get a bit better output. Only makes sense. Because a lot of times in football, you know, not everything comes down to the system working perfectly. Moments happen, and it's about how you learn to deal with situations. It's very easy reading about how to do something, but in reality, when it comes to actually being practical and doing it, it's a completely different thing. I think hindsight is where we're gonna finally learn what was correct or what's wrong. I think one thing that is definitely correct from a purely tactical and football point of view, Azpilicueta just doesn't suit what Frank Lampard wants. You know, he wants his fullbacks to be, I mean, basically very similar to how Liverpool play and how Leicester play. You know, he wants those fullbacks to attack the spaces, to get in behind, to put crosses in, to be available as outlets out wide, you know, to be available for switch passes, etc, etc. You know, at times the fullback is going to be left isolated, and this is why having the technical prowess is so important. But with Azpilicueta, and the stats show it, the guy had 91 or 97 touches of the ball and he lost it 22 times. 22 times. That is really bad. That's very uncharacteristic for Azpi. And when you think about why is it so uncharacteristic for Azpi, you realize that his skill set just doesn't suit what we need. You know, Azpilicueta has always overperformed whenever he's playing in defensively compact teams. Now, best I've seen of Azpi was under Conte. The partnership between him and Moses was the best in the league. So solid, so sound, and their defensive partnership was amazing. But we're not trying to play that way anymore. And I think the reality that we have to accept is that a lot of these guys are getting phased out. And by next season, it's going to be like we're a completely different team. But the emergence of Reece James is so vital and so important. I really feel confident about him. I really feel that this guy is really going to improve the team. His skill set, his build. I mean, the guy's built like Ivanovic. Great pace. Great at playing out from pressure as well. Always one step ahead. In the final third, he has that quality. His crossing range is incredible. And when you see the freedom that Reece is going to have, when you see that he will be left isolated out wide on the right, imagine the time and space he'll have for his delivery. It makes sense. I see it happening. And, you know, once some of these key players are back, things are only going to get better and things are only going to improve. In the comments below, leave me your thoughts and opinions. I really want to get an understanding of what you guys took from today's video. I'm Nini FC. This is Blue Lions TV. See you guys later.